Something I'd like to touch on with traditional bows. A lot of people ask me, can I get up another 5 pounds or whatever at my draw length? And really, it's just a matter of building the strength for it and getting accustomed to the bow. I have a 58-pound bow, and something that a lot of people don't seem to understand is that the natives, they didn't switch out different bows for different animals. To my understanding, they probably logically grew up shooting one, and at some point they picked up their dad's bow or something and wanted to try shooting it, and they could only draw it halfway or something. There's nothing wrong with that, because as I found with a lot of short bows, they only draw to say there anyways, and they're at max draw. So if you were to try to jump up 10 pounds or something in a bow that you weren't accustomed to shooting, you could easily draw at, say if I was used to a 45-pound bow, somewhere around, say, 18, 20 inches, this bow is going to be pulling 45 pounds, even though it's closer to 60. So there's no reason why you can't practice with it at close range or walk around and shoot leaves in the yard, just to learn the coordination aspect and the aiming and the trajectory of the bow. So a lot of times what I like to do, I shoot a lot of heavy bows, and sometimes I'm just not into it. I'm not in the right mind frame or whatever. And when you're talking about 100, 120, 130 pound bows or thereabouts, there's days you have off days and you're just not shooting well. So a lot of times what I will do is, or even when I'm testing a new bow like this, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll get close to the target, say 5 yards or something, and just pull it back part way and look down the arrow and get used to shooting it at short distance. So I kind of already know if it's shooting way differently than what I'm accustomed to, because every bow is different. Some of them I put rests on, some have little antler spurs, and sometimes that does throw the arrow in a different direction. Some bows just shoot to the left, for example. Spine has a lot to do with it, tuning your bow has a lot to do with it, but each bow has its own unique characteristics. So what I recommend is just to walk around the yard and shoot at leaves and whatnot from unspecified distances, 7 yards, 9 yards, 18 yards, it doesn't really matter. Just try to pick out a leaf in the yard or something of that nature, apples off the tree or whatever. And you don't have to shoot these things at full draw. Everybody thinks that they're used to compounds and they think that they have to shoot at a full 31 inches of draw or something. They're not factoring the fact that you're losing a couple inches switching from a compound release to bare fingers, and they just don't understand the whole concept of it. It's not that it's that in depth, because it's just a stick and a string throwing another stick, but you can gain a lot of knowledge from shooting bows at, say, partial draw at closer range, and then you'll start realizing that a 60-pound bow can be used to hunt squirrels, and if you only pull it back this far, the arrow's only going to go up in the air 60 feet. So if you're trying to shoot a squirrel at 20 feet, that's plenty enough impact to take the squirrel out of the tree and recover your arrow. You're not trying to shoot 300 yards for distance or something with a bow like this if you're a subsistence hunter or just trying to survive. You're literally trying to keep your arrows intact and recover them and get as much meat as possible. So there's not a whole lot of reason, besides, say, shooting big game or target practicing at longer hunting distances, to really shoot a bow at full draw all the time if it's a traditional bow. You can get away with a lot with these things in arrow weight. Some of them, the spine literally don't matter. It depends on how the bow is built. And some of them, you have to have everything in your favor in order to have an accurate shot. So it really does help to just walk around in the yard and shoot at leaves that are blowing across the yard or whatever, if you got a decent backstop, and just learn the bow itself and the characteristics of the arrow. These arrows are not really meant for this bow. They're not the greatest arrows, but they're plenty good enough for beating around the yard and getting used to it, testing out a bow, that sort of thing. And honestly, I would rather shoot cheap junk arrows like this that I know are really durable if I was hunting small game, because I'm not going to be shooting it at full draw all the time. Yes, you can. And it's a lethal proposition. But if you're just after a rabbit at 20 yards, say we'll pick out a leaf in the yard, all you got to do is pull it back far enough to get to the rabbit and stick through it. You're not trying to pin it to a tree or bust through the shoulder blades of an elk or anything. So I just wanted to touch base on that. I think a lot of people have misconceptions about primitive archery and traditional bows in general, and it's kind of funny to me, because if you put yourself in the position of a young kid or a young native trying to learn how to be an archer because he sees his dad doing it, or the hunters in the family, he's going to try to emulate them, and at some point he's going to pick up a bow that he can't physically draw back. But that doesn't mean that he can't hunt with it and be proficient with it, and as he gets older he can develop that strength to pull it all the way back and take on big game or defend the tribe or whatever. But the preceding 5 years it takes to get to that point, or whatever it takes him, 6 months, he's not going to be able to draw it back all the way, and he's still going to want to hunt with it and get good with it. So obviously he wasn't going to be picking up a 60-pound bow or whatever that his dad was shooting and thinking that he's going to go chase down bison or something the next day. It takes years of developing that muscle memory and just the skill to do it. And they probably wouldn't have even, since they revered nature so much, they probably wouldn't even have allowed it. They probably would have just sent him out looking for grouse or something like that and laughed at him because he was shooting too big of a bow for his size, and eventually he was going to, prove his worth. So I just wanted to touch base on that.